Word on this computer. Okay, very good. So we are on Daf Chaf Aleph Amar Aleph at the bottom, a new Mishnah, and the Mishnah goes as follows. So Nazir, a Nazarite, right? So we're talking about. Remember, we haven't learned. I looked. The last time we had a class was more than a month ago. It was the beginning of August. So we're talking about in which cases you get lashes.
Got it. What am I looking for?
21a. Oh, do you have to scroll all the way? Yeah. So scroll or go to 21b and then go up a little bit because it's right before 21b.
Yeah, but it's still not giving me an index. I'm hoping for an index.
Yeah, the index would help. Yeah. Okay. So Nazir, a Nazarite, right? So Nazir is someone who commits not to drink wine, not to cut his hair, right? All these things that he commits to doing. Now, if he does it, so he can get lashes, right? He has to get warned, etc. But he can get lashes for going against what he committed to. And this whole Makkos is all about lashes, right? Which is one of the primary punishments for someone that does an actionable sin. So a Nazarite, if he's drinking wine a whole day, right? Sitting and drinking wine a whole day. He only gets one set of lashes, right? Because he's drinking, it's one day. But if they come and they tell him, al tishta, they tell him, don't drink. He says, I don't care, I'm going to drink anyways. And he drinks, right? And then half an hour later, they tell him, don't drink. And he says, I don't care, I'm going to drink anyways, right? So in each time, so then, so then he's liable for each time that he was warned, right? Each time he was warned, they went against it. Now, this is something we already learned. We had this quote already in the Gemara. Now, another thing an Nazarite is not allowed to do is get impure by going into like a kohen, like is not allowed to go into a cemetery. So if he was becoming impure to a corpse all day, so then so for the whole day, it's only one set of lashes. But if but if they tell him don't be in the same house as the corpse, don't, and he says I don't care, right? He has to respond, and so then he'll be liable for each time. Another thing he's not allowed to do, we said, is cut his hair, right? So I don't know how much hair do you have to have. Oh, that's true. Right. Or he's taking a scissor. Right? Each piece, one at a time. But if he was doing it slowly and it took him a whole day to cut his hair, so liable only once, right? But if they tell him, but if they tell him in between each one, so then he's liable for each and every one. Oh, we're talking about kilayim. So if someone's wearing kilayim, right? So what's kilayim? Of linen and wool, right? Wool and linen. Yeah, you were listening this morning. Good. Wool and linen. And today actually you could buy a suit that would have a linen siding on it to make it stiff, right? There's reasons to be careful about it even today. Of course, back in the day, we were talking about when you make your own piece of clothing, don't mix the two, right? But today, there could be a problem, and it's a pasuk in the Torah, it's a biblical thing, so we're very careful about it. So if someone is wearing kilayim, right? There's someone wearing something that is made out of wool and linen. So, and he wore it the whole day. So chayav we would get one set of lashes, right? By the way, this is someone who does it on purpose and is warned and says you shouldn't do it, and he says I don't care, right? We're not like so inadvertent. There's a different story, and someone that was forced to is a whole different story, etc. Right? Now, what if someone tells him al tilbash, right? Tells him every time don't wear it, and he takes it off and he puts it back on, right? Even though it's all in the same day, so then he's liable for each one of them. The Gemara is going to qualify that about taking it off and putting it on. It's an argument in the Gemara soon. Now we're on 21b. We're on the second part of the Yesh Chodesh Telamechel. So now the Gemara, the Mishnah, gives you an extreme example of kilayim, right? So it says there could be a scenario where someone will do charisha. Charisha means to plow a field, right? To plow a field, one stretch of the field, right? One line of the field, not even the whole field, one line of the field, telamechad, and he could be liable, and it's possible for someone to be to have eight eight sins by this one thing. So what's the scenario? First of all, if he does kilayim, right? Kilayim of putting together a donkey and an ox, right? They shouldn't be, by the way, Philip, you mentioned the chayk. This is tar balachayim. Can you imagine what kind of torture if you put two different types of animals to pull the same thing, and one is going at its pace, one's we're not even talking about one faster, one slower, each one with their own attitude. You push it, torturing them if you put them together. It's one of the reasons, but it doesn't explain the clothing. But I'm just saying, there's a lot of thought process part of it. Yeah. So vehein mukdashin, and if these animals belong to the base of Mikdash, right? And the kilayim, and you're planting, you're dealing with kilayim, not only the animals but also the planting. Bekerem, in a vineyard, b'shvius. A vineyard is even worse than a regular planting, right? And b'shvius, and it's in the 7th year when you're not allowed to plant the field. The yom tov, and it's a holiday. The koyin, the nazir, the beis atuma, and you're a koyin and a nazir, and you're in a place of tuma, which means like in a place where there's a corpse that you're not allowed to be. So the Mishnah gives you a scenario where the extreme scenario where you could be liable up to eight times in such a thing. For one action. By the way, we've talked about it, but it's worth mentioning again because Makkos, we're talking about lashes over here. Remember, we talked about that the doctor comes in and decides how many lashes this person can get, right? If this person, the doctor walks in and says, if you give him 3 lashes, he'll die. You have to give him 2, not 3, right? And not only that, he could be liable 8 times 39. And still, he gets putter of everything with whatever the doctor says. And just give you an idea of what's going on over here, right? So that is what the Mishnah says. So now the Chanani ben Chachina yomer af alevish kilayim. So Chanani says, 1 second, there could be an ninth one. What if he's wearing a piece of clothing that's kilayim, right? There could be another one. So the Amru Lai, so they told him, Einei Hashem. Says, by the way. Huh? Oh, good, very good. So they turn to him and they say, Einay Hashem. You know what Einay Hashem means? It's not part of it that we should be mentioning it over here. We're talking about plowing.
Not in the same category.
It's not in the same category. Plowing is something else, right? So yeah, if it's not part of the same action. Right? Plowing, everything else that we mentioned is part of plowing. But then, Amar Lam, says, 1 second, but the Nazir, you could say that he's a Kohen and a Nazirite. That has nothing to do with the plowing. So there is part of it that he's being liable for not necessarily not having anything to do with plowing. He's a Nazir in a place that he's not allowed to be, but that has nothing to do with plowing. So if you're putting in things that are nothing to do with plowing, I could also. That's basically saying, right? So but so the point of it is, I think that there could be many more. You're saying 8. In the scenario could be many more, but this is the idea of the Mishnah. So let's go first to the first statement of the Mishnah that we want to talk about. The first statement of the Mishnah that we want to talk about is the idea of someone that's being told, don't wear kilayim, and then he takes it off and he puts it back on, right? So the Gemara asks, Afilu machnis unkali. So what does it mean to take off and to put it on, right? What is it? How much does he have to do? So Ravacha Breid Ravika Yolivapuking. So Ravacha went and showed it. He says, look, he took off his thing. He says, look, putting in one hand into the sleeve, that's good enough. Meaning that you have to do the action, right? And Ravashi says, no, when the Mishnah says that it has to be that he takes it on and takes it off, it means that he waited enough time to take it on and take it off. Right? Let's remember what the Mishnah said. The Mishnah said that if someone's wearing something of kilayim a whole day, he's only liable for 1 set of lashes, right? Now, what if he's warned, don't wear it, and he takes it on and takes it off and puts it back on? So then, in that case, he's liable for each time. So the Gemara qualifies it and says, according to opinion of Ravacha Breid Ravika, it means that he actually takes it off and puts it back on. According to Rav Ashi, he says no. It means that it can't be like take it off, take it off, take it off, and that's already 3 times. No, it has to be take it off and enough time for him to take it off and put it back on, and then he could be liable for another one.
So if somebody sees the guy wearing Klein, he could say, "Hey, you're wearing Klein, take it off." Doesn't take it off. He goes back to studying. Another guy comes in. "Hey, you're wearing Klein, take it off." He doesn't take it off. He gets lashes for that.
Each time, yeah. Not he does take it off. He answers him. First of all, he has to recognize that the guy warned him. And he has to verbally say that he doesn't care. And not only that, the warning has to be, you could get lashes, you could get malchus for this, and he has to respond cognitively that we have to recognize that he heard, and he says that he doesn't care. He recognizes that he can get punished. Otherwise, they won't get lashes.
So he won't get lashes if he puts it on and doesn't realize.
No, you don't get lashes. You have to bring a carbon because
No.
And in an advertent sin, we bring a carbon.
What I'm trying to say is,
yeah,
if he does it inadvertently,
nothing.
Nothing.
What do you mean nothing? He has to do tshuva. If I turned on the light by mistake on Shabbos, right?
Still do tshuva.
So I have to do tshuva.
Nothing else.
So in the times of the temple, we had to bring a carbon. It was part of the tshuva process to bring a sacrifice. Today, it's tshuva. Daven. Have extra kavanah the next time you daven. That would be a good starting place for tshuva. Also, to be more mindful, etc. These are parts of doing tshuva is to recognize what you've done and try to make sure or put things in place. What if I turned on the light because it's just so and I do it once, twice, and I realize maybe I should cover the light for Shabbos, right? Maybe that's the idea.
You're leaning against the light switch button.
Right. Over here we cover the light switches in the bathrooms on Shabbos because of that. I don't want someone to by mistake turn it off because they're used to doing that.
But the halacha doesn't give an answer. I took a look what the halacha actually is, and it goes through all of these. It doesn't say which one. It said, I'll read it quickly. If he inserts and removes his own. Okay, one who was wearing a garment of diverse kinds of wool and linen all day is liable to receive only one set of lashes. If he took his head out of the garment and replaced it, and did so repeatedly, he's liable to receive lashes for each time that he did so, even though he did not remove the garment completely. If he received only one forewarning, he is liable to receive only one set of lashes for the entire day. But if he was forewarned and continued wearing the garment long enough for him to remove it and don it, he is liable for each and every period that he followed a forewarning, even if he did not actually remove the garment.
So the halacha is like Rav Ashi. Oh, you're saying it doesn't qualify who the halacha is like if it's like Rav Ashi. So it's a good question. It's a good question. I don't know. I'm looking over here also. They don't bring down the halacha.
Because here it says halacha. Usually, when it says halacha, he gives the halacha.
Yeah. No. So I don't think. Right. Yeah. Okay, so let's continue. Now the Gemara is going to discuss that second part of the Mishnah, the end part of the Mishnah, about the scenario where someone could be liable for 8 sets of lashes by one charisha, one plowing of one line in his field. So yesh chayrish tel. Rabbi Yanai b'chavura. So Rabbi Yanai in the chabura, you know what chabura means? Chabura means when a group of people get together to study together. A chabura. Today, even in yeshivas, you have it, chabura. You have a rosh chabura. Usually, you have someone that leads the chabura, but it's not teacher to student. It's more of a joint learning. Okay, so when the sages came together in a chabura, so Rabbi Yanai says like this: Nimnu v'gamru. Nimnu v'gamru means that we came to a conclusion, right? We came to a conclusion. That if someone let's say there's different seeds on the ground, and he takes earth and he covers those seeds, right? So the different types of seeds are kilayim, right? And he covers those seeds, that's already enough that he should be liable. Even if he didn't plant them, he just took some earth and covered those seeds, that's already considered to be a problem of kilayim. Right? Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan tells Rabbi Yanai, "Lavin Mishnah Seino Hizu." Says, what are you're saying? You're saying something that's novel. You're making as if you're saying something that's novel, but we have it clear in our Mishnah. Now we don't have it clear in our Mishnah. I'm just giving you a heads up of what the Gemara is going to say, right? Rabbi Yochanan learns it in our Mishnah, but it's not so clear in our Mishnah. So Rabbi Yochanan explains himself, and he says in our Mishnah it says Yesh chodesh telam echad v'chayiv la mishum shmeina, right? That there's a scenario where someone could do 8 things in the process of plowing and be liable for 8 sins and 8 sets of lashes, right? Then what does he mention? Etc. Now he continues. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Hi chodesh the mechayiv mishum kilayim." This guy that's plowing and he's liable for doing kilayim. How could someone that's plowing? He's not planting, he's plowing. So how could he be doing kilayim? Right? It doesn't say yesh hazoreya, someone that's planting that could do it. No, it says he's plowing. It's not planting. So kilayim, obviously, what does it mean? That there was seeds there that got covered by his plowing, right? So that's Rabbi Yochanan, of course, right? That's what Rabbi Yochanan says. Rabbi Yanai, you're making it as a novel thing. We have it in our Mishnah. Isn't it because isn't the kilayim in our Mishnah because when he's plowing he's covering with that earth? So Amar Le, so Rabbi Yanai has a good answer for him. Rabbi Yanai says you're right. Technically you're right. He says yeah, you're right, and that's what the Mishnah is referring to. But if I wouldn't have removed, literally the translation is, if I wouldn't have removed that piece of earthenware, you wouldn't have found a diamond that's hidden in the rock, right? Meaning, I told you a statement, and now you said, oh yeah, it's in the Mishnah. Meaning, if I wouldn't have made that statement, you wouldn't have seen it in the Mishnah, right? I revealed it for you. So what are you telling me, like novel? Yes, it is novel. And yes, you're right, it's also in the Mishnah. Now, that was the story that happened between Rabbi Yanai and Rabbi Yochanan. Now, Rabbi Yochanan had a beloved brother-in-law that he used to have a great time with, learn a tremendous amount with. So later on, it seems that Amar later Shlakish Rabbi Yochanan, Rish Lakish tells Rabbi Yochanan, "Ilav de kilsach gavra rabba," says, you know, really, Rabbi Yanai should have answered you a little bit more harshly. That's basically what Rish Lakish, a good brother-in-law, right? He says, really, Rabbi Yanai should have answered you more harshly. I have a way that I could have answered you more harshly. But the Gavra Rabba, a real big sage, Rabbi Yanai, commended you and said, you're right, it's Azay is this in the Mishnah, that's the way it's in the Mishnah. So, but if he wouldn't have said that, I would have told you, Hava minim asnisim mani Rebbe Kivahi. I would have said that our Mishnah is according to the opinion of Rabbi Kiva, and that's why it says that Rabbi Kiva is famous for the opinion. Rabbi Kiva says that even if you hold mixed seeds, you could get lashes. Meaning, it's not only planting. We're going to see it inside in a moment. We could quote Rabbi Kiva, but just keep it in mind because it's going to bring it up soon. The pasuk says you're not allowed to plant kilayim. Rabbi Kiva is of the opinion you're not even allowed to mix the seeds together in your own hand. You're not allowed to keep the seeds together, keep them separate, keep them, keep the seeds separate while you're storing them, even, right? So the Mishnah, according to Rish Lakish, is according to Rabbi Kiva, which means that it has nothing to do with the plowing and covering over by plowing. It's because you had mixed seeds together with you, and that's why you're liable for kilayim.
Yeah, but how does you have mixed seeds? Okay, how does that relate to a donkey and an ox? You got mixed seeds. Rabbi Akiva is saying it's the same thing. 8 lashes if you have only mixed seeds.
Right.
What does mixed seeds have to do with a donkey and
That's a good question. I don't have an answer.
Have to do with a donkey and an ox?
Yeah. But he was while plowing, he had it in his pocket. I don't know. It's a good question. I don't have an answer to that question.
I think it's really a stretch.
No, so the question is if mechape means taking earth and covering seeds, if that's considered to be kilayim. So our Mishnah seems to say yes. Comes Rabbi Kiva and says, hold on a second, maybe comes Rish Lakish and says, maybe according to Rabbi Kiva, it wasn't being covered over. The seeds are there and it wasn't being covered over. And therefore, maybe still, according to the other sages that disagree with Rabbi Kiva, mechapa, which means to cover over seeds, you're not liable. That's the question over here. But you're right, it's a stretch. And not only that, Rabbi Yanai agrees with Rabbi Yochanan. So therefore, Rish Lakish is not saying that I disagree. It says, since Rabbi Yana agrees with you, I'm not going to say anything, but I would have said that, right? Right? So it's still, and you're right, it is a stretch what Rish Lakish is saying, and that's probably why Rabbi Yana never accepted that idea. So now the Gemara says, where do we have this opinion of Rabbi Akiva? My Rabbi Akiva, where's this opinion of Rabbi Akiva? So he says the Tanya. We learned in a Braisa, Manakish. If someone is weeding his field, right? He's taking out the bad growth, right? And if someone is just covering over seeds, meaning not planting seeds, there's seeds out, and he's just taking earth and covering it over. Be kilayim, and those seeds are what are kilayim? They're mixed seeds. So like it. So the Mishnah said that Raisa says that you get lashes just for that. Rabbi Kiva says that even if you just mekayim, if you hold on to, if you just have the mixed seeds, you potentially could get lashes for that. So that's where we have the proof that Rabbi Kiva holds that way. My time of the Rebbe Kiva, so the Gemara says, hold on a second, what's his reasoning? What does it mean? That as we're going to see in a moment, the pasuk only says, Sadcha lo'isizra kilayim. Don't plant kilayim in your field. That's what it says in the pasuk. It doesn't say that you're not allowed to kilayim, right? Have kilayim, exactly, carry it in your pocket like that, right? So my time of the Rebbe Kiva, the Tanya, so you learned like this. So the pasuk says, "Sadcha le'isizra kilai." The pasuk says that in your field don't plant kilai. Ainly ela from here we only could learn zeireya, which means planting. Mekayim miminayin. Where do we learn out mekayim? Where do we know this idea that you can't just hold mixed seeds? Amid loymar behemtachaleisar biakilayim sadcha le'isizra kilayim. So basically, the pasuk says, so the whole pasuk, the pshat of the pasuk is not so much that way, but if you look at the pasuk and you take out the words kilayim sadcha loy, okay, it's a drush from those words that kilayim there shouldn't be in your field. It doesn't say so. Basically. Afterwards, it says also Sizra Kilayim, right? But it says Kilayim, the idea of Kilayim, the idea of mixing in your field it shouldn't have, right? So he learns from there that even beyond planting, you shouldn't even carry, you shouldn't even have this idea of Kilayim. And that's where he learns it from. So that's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Okay? So this is the idea. Okay, that's the end of this part. So basically, it's a cute part of the Mishnah, right? When you have the back and forth with Rabbi Gemara, with Rabbi Yana and Rabbi Yochanan, right? Rabbi Yana, I guess, was the Rosh Chabura, was the leader of the Chabura of the study group, right? And you had the Rabbi Yochanan there, and Rabbi Yochanan says, "One second, what you're saying is not so novel." And he says, "Yeah, but you wouldn't have known it without me showing it to you, right? It's it's a diamond, but you wouldn't have known it without me." And Rish Lakish comes and says, "Yeah, I would have had another answer, but because Rabbi Yana agreed with what he said, so I have nothing to say." Right? Yeah.
Here it says on the halacha, one
Yeah.
who maintains hamekayim it is prohibited to maintain diverse kinds of seeds in one's field. One must uproot them. But if he maintained them, he is not liable to receive lashes, as the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis in their dispute with Rabbi Akiva.
Very nice.
So you see, normally Rabbi Akiva never loses. He never loses an halachic.
If a one-on-one. If he's going up against the rabbis, he will lose.
That's what I'm saying. This is the majority.
Exactly. It's a pasuk in the Torah. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. Next part of the Gemara, a new Indian in the Gemara. Amar le Ula Rav Nachman. Ula tells Rav Nachman. So we mentioned in our Mishnah a scenario where you could get 8 sets of lashes. So Ula tells Rav Nachman that he should get another set of lashes for another thing. Why? Because he's doing something on Yom Tov. Mishum Zedeh B'Yom Tov. He's doing something on Yom Tov. If you're saying that covering over those seeds, you're liable for kilayim, he's also planting on Yom Tov, so you should get another set of lashes for that. So Rav Nachman tells Ula Tana V'Shir. The Tana didn't tell you everything. Listen to this Gemara; it's fascinating, right? So Rav Nachman tells Ula, he didn't tell you everything. Yes, tell you everything. So Ula tells Rav Nachman, Tana Katani Shmeina. What do you mean he did it? He left things over. He went and included 8. So he's not leaving anything over. Don't tell me Tana Bashir. Don't tell me that he was not being, he was just telling me one thing or 2 things. No, he said 8. So of course he wasn't looking to leave anything out. Right? He's coming and telling me 8, and you're telling me that he left some out. No, he didn't leave anything out. He was trying to find every scenario. So no, so that wasn't the answer. Amar Rava. So Rava says, Yesh chiluk melachas b'Shabbos ve'ein chiluk melachas b'Yom Tov. So there are 39 categories of things that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos, right? We all know there's 39, right? What if someone did one of each of the 39, or did 3 of the 39, but didn't remember in between? He's liable for each one of the 3 because they're in different categories. And that's something unique to Shabbos. But if it happened on Yom Tov, if he did 3 things in 3 different categories, only liable once. Yeah, so it's a general rule that yesh chiluk melachas b'Shabbos, we do divvy them up and we divide them on Shabbos, but not on Yom Tov. So Amar Lei, so Ula tells Rava, Oda tehei. Yeah, so you're right. That makes sense. And what happens? Since we already gave him 1 set of lashes for doing it on Yom Tov, we're not going to give him another set of lashes for another thing that he did on Yom Tov, right? Because he's already liable for 1 thing. And that's why he said 8. So it's not ton of a shear. He's not telling me only part of it. No, 8 is the right number. Okay. Yeah. So, think about it. This is a bunch of sages sitting around and discussing halacha and having a back and forth. It's a very geschmack when you think about it from that perspective. Like the Chabura sitting there and having this conversation. It's amazing. So Abaye asks Rav, "Are you going to tell me that we don't make a chiluk when it comes to malachas on Yom Tov, when it comes to different categories of actions on Yom Tov? But didn't we learn hamavashel gid? If someone cooks a gid, the nerve that you're not allowed to eat, right? The gid anosha, the sciatic nerve that Yaakov, because of Yaakov and the angel, we don't eat, right? So now the gid anosha, the sciatic nerve, you're not allowed to eat. Eating it with milk, you're not allowed to eat because it's basar b'chalav. You're not allowed to eat milk and meat together. And you cooked it on Yom Tov, right? Like a chamish malki. So it could be a scenario of getting 5 sets of lashes. Like a mishum eichel gid. Number 1, because of this sciatic nerve that you're not allowed to eat. Like a mishum vashel b'Yom Tov shalei l'tzeirach. And you're allowed to cook on Yom Tov, but you're not allowed to cook on Yom Tov something that you're not allowed to eat. You're only allowed to cook something that you're going to eat. It's only because of simchas Yom Tov. So if you're not going to eat it, or if you're not allowed to eat it, so then you're not allowed to cook it either, right? So that's the second. Like a mishum vashel gid. And then for cooking milk and meat, which you're not allowed to do. And then for eating milk and meat, which you're not allowed to do. We're on Chaf Beis Amar Aleph, we're on the 22a. Also for making a fire on Yom Tov. Now you're allowed to if you're going to do it for Simchas Yom Tov, but you're not allowed to. So
it's interesting. It makes a difference. The ads. Because it's talking here, you're not allowed to cook a sciatic nerve in milk. But here, one of the lashes is not for cooking it, it's for eating it.
Yeah.
In other words, you get a lash because even if it says cook, you get a lash because it's related to cooking is eating it.
No. There's two separate prohibitions.
It says you get 5 lashes.
Right, because each one is a different prohibition. There's a prohibition, right? There's a prohibition of cooking milk and meat.
No, the first one.
There's a prohibition of eating milk and meat, and there's a prohibition of eating the sciatic nerve. There's no prohibition of cooking the sciatic nerve.
One who cooks a sciatic nerve in milk. on a festival and eats it, is flogged with 5, okay, he eats it, flogged with
Yeah.
5 sets of lashes. Okay.
And it goes through each one, and it's all based on a pasuk. So now, so what are we asking? What do we want to know? How could you get more than one set of lashes when it comes to Yom Tov? Didn't we just say that ein chilik b'Yom Tov? That in Yom Tov we don't separate them, and if you did it all at once, you only get one set of lashes. You won't get right on Shabbos. Technically, you could get more, but on Yom Tov we don't say right v'im isa. And if it's going to go according to your opinion, mishum havara le'mechayev, he shouldn't be liable for the fire because he's already he's already liable for cooking on Yom Tov. Making a fire on Yom Tov is another category of something that you're not allowed to do on Yom Tov. So he shouldn't be liable. We're not talking about the aspects of eating something that's not kosher that he is liable for, because those have nothing to do with Yom Tov. But the two things that he's liable only because it's Yom Tov should be joined together as one. That's what we talked about, right? So the Gemara answers, Apek avara. No, avara doesn't belong there. The fact that he made a fire on Yom Tov doesn't belong here. Va'ayil gidanasha shal nevela, and add that it was from a dead animal, not from a shechted animal, and therefore it's another. That's why it's 5. Gemara doesn't like this. V'atani Reb Chia, like Yishtayim al Achilosei v'shalosh al bishulei. Reb Chia says, hold on a second. We learned that Reb Chia over there in that brayso says that he gets 2 sets of lashes for eating and 3 for cooking. V'im isa, and if you're going to say that the final set of lashes is for the fact that it's a sciatic nerve of a nevela, so then it would be shalosh ala chilasei chayiv. It would be 3 sets of lashes for eating, because that final one is about eating, not about cooking. Right? So your idea of taking out fire and putting this in, it doesn't work. So Ella, so the Gemara answers, so it's not that he made a fire that he's liable for, because that take, he can't be liable for 2 things in Yom Tov, but it's a case where he used wood that was used for Avodah Zarah. And you're not allowed to use, it's a scenario, right? Obviously, it's a weird scenario and it's an offbeat, but it could be, right? And your wood that was used for idol worship, you can't use. You're not allowed to derive any benefit from anything that was used for idol worship. So Vazhara say, Me'achav leid back biyadcha. So now, but the Gemara asks on that, Amar le Ravacha breid Rava le Ravashi. The Rav says to Ravashi, says if you're using something from something that was used for Avodah Zarah, you're not going to get 1 set of lashes. You're going to get 2 set of lashes, because there's one pasuk and there's another bracha. So now it's not 5, then it would be 6. So your scenario doesn't work either. So the Gemara says, "Ella achav what's it talking about? Not wood that was used for Avodah Zarah. The opposite, wood that was consecrated to use in the holy temple." Vazhara say, that there's a pasuk, that there's an azhara that you're not allowed to use wood that was designated for the holy temple. You're not allowed to use it for private use, and if you did, you're liable for lashes. So that's the number 5.
I got a real funny question.
Yeah, so it just like because we're going to stop over here. This is the beginning of 22b. I'm going to stop the recording over here.